Moxley sends it to the outside. He can't get there. Kevin King is going to win the Barbizzel FTF Cup Series.
Into the lead. Bud gets wrecked in front of the pack. He saves it. 3-4 wide as they come to the white flag.
Here comes Vargas down on the apron. They are 5 wide. Ian Plash will win it at the line. Is this package? Oh, there goes Jordan Lopez Jr. That's your race leader. Caution flag is out.
Still no one willing to give up as they're going to be dead even off of the first chicane.
Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here? Here comes the canvas.
Get your front gear.
He's got it. He's got it.
Canvas is in.
From the high-speed oval of the Texas Motor Speedway to one of endurance racing's hallowed grounds, we go to the forests of France for round 6 of the modernracingprince.com FTF1 series. Welcome to FTF.GG's coverage of the middle round of this 2023 campaign. I'm your host, Joshua Lee. Alongside me in the booth is Joey Atterbury. And Joey, we go from an oval and the last road course we were at, Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, to Circuit de la Sarthe, which is about as far away from Texas as you can possibly get in both location and in type of racetrack, going from 1.5 miles high-speed banked to equally high speed, but now adding a couple of miles to 8.47 and 38 turns.
I think you're right. If you're trying to draw similarities between the two, the only thing that's similar is going to be the engine RPMs pegged way up there, hitting those top speeds here through the French countryside. You're right. Quite a difference from Texas, and very different from the drivers that they faced over at Spa just a couple weeks ago. So this one, I'm curious to see how the racing is going to play out, but one thing's for sure, it's going to be a huge draft battle down the Mulsanne.
That is where everything is going to be made, I think. And of course, Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, very much a recent Formula One track. It has been used in Formula One. To my knowledge, I don't believe F1 has ever held a Grand Prix in Le Mans, but I also think that these Dallara IR01s are going to put on a show wherever you put them. And Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, they were able to pull a little bit out of the bag of tricks, specifically when we're talking about open wheel racing. Le Mans, they really don't have that. I mean, we've seen all the practice for the 24-hour race coming up this weekend with prototypes, GTs, NASCAR's Garage 56 entry. Not really open wheel cars, and not really the Dallaras that are reaching speeds upwards of 200 miles an hour flat out through a couple of these corners.
I think it's neat. It's neat to be able to put these cars on a track that you traditionally wouldn't see an open wheel car on. Here in iRacing, we get that opportunity, and you're right. I think specifically these IR01 cars, with the speeds that they reach, the grip levels that they have, it's going to produce tremendous racing. And I was noticing the times in qualifying too, about 3 minutes. So they are hauling the mail around this place.
I mentioned 24 laps that we're going to be going racing for tonight. 1 hour, 25 minutes on the timer, just in case we end up reaching that time limit, and not the 24 hours around Circuit de la Sarthe. It is the 24 laps. And of course, everybody will have to make a compound swap through the middle of that race. And through qualifying, of course, the typical modernracingprince.com FTF1 series rules of you need to be within 107% of the fastest time in order to qualify for this race. The fastest time put up by, no surprise, the number 1 car of Brandon Hawken. However, rest of the field on through, top 16 were able to reach that threshold, and everybody that did put a lap in was able to reach that threshold. 17th place did not put in a complete lap, so they have been disqualified from the proceedings tonight. So top 16 from qualifying will go racing around this track, and there you get a great look at that long back straightaway that is going to be the part of the racetrack where we see a lot of passing opportunities, with about 2 chicanes also leading down to the edge of that straightaway, as well as warm up concludes. Checkered flag flies. We get ready to go racing tonight from Circuit de la Sarthe and the 6th round of the 2023 campaign for the modernracingprince.com FTF1 Series. 16 drivers will take to the starting grid, and we'll see how they will line up on that starting grid. It's Canada's Brandon Hawken with the best time in qualifying. Hamilton Akabubueze will start to his outside, with Jake Powell and Robert Lowry completing the first 2 rows. Corey Vervinkt going to round out the top 5 from qualifying, with Nicholas Pressey to his outside on the 3rd row. Justin Malillo and Ben Goyet will share that 4th row, with Ryan Pandesio and Paul Mikolajczyk rounding out the top 10 from qualifying. And rounding out your field of qualifiers, Jonathan Goke, Matthew Breyer on the 6th row, Roger Saucier with Rafael Ruiz on row 7, Nicholas Warner, Tori Pushman, row 8, John Poole III, and Blake Trawick is going to round out all the drivers that will compete tonight, with Cody Ware also not competing tonight, and John Poole and Trewick also not competing. But it's showtime from France, and one car stuck on the starting grid as they all run their way down to turn number 1. Vervinkt not going anywhere off the start. He falls way on back, but it's Hawken, it's Powlin, Lowry, Akabueze, and Pressey through the top 5 as they all work their way through the first sector for the first time. They'll reach that long back straightaway as we've got a car around. Nicholas Warner gets turned around in the first chicane, but Hawken looking to pull away immediately. Now they reach that back straightaway flat out on the entry, and this is where we're going to see so many slipstream passes tonight. But right now, as they race down there for the first time, Joey Atterbury, nobody making any passes. Everyone just trying to get close to the next car in front, side by side towards the mid-pack, and now a move being made towards the mid-pack as well. Mikolajczyk and Pressey almost going side by side for a moment.
And yeah, it's really an escape from the front too, and now you see Robert Lowry get past Akabueze into the first chicane on the Mulsanne. Hamilton had a little bit of a slip up going on to the straightaway, the first part of the straightaway, and that's why you get this gap here between 2nd and 3rd place. Now you see Hamilton use that slipstream, but something I'm noticing, these cars topping out, they're hitting the rev limiter right at about 197 miles per hour. So it's all about timing that run. When can you get by? When can you make that leapfrog? Because your ultimate top speed is going to be identical.
Also heard from a couple of the drivers after FP1 and FP2 that they were getting a little bit of a floor of these cars hitting the ground as they go down the straightaway. So we'll watch for that all night tonight as well. Might not be a big factor as those tire pressures start to raise up a little bit, but as we go through the opening lap, already about halfway done as Jake Powlin goes off and into the gravel, back onto the racetrack. He goes from P8. And Hawken Akabueze back to the top 2 spots. Lowry in 3rd. Goyet Mikolajczyk through the top 5 as now they get off of that long back straightaway, starting to find a couple more battles through this field as we look to go side by side in the middle of the pack, and gonna decide against it there as we look to more side by side closer up the road.
Gonna be really interesting to see this racing play out, because I feel like these drivers are going to have to get really aggressive with this setup. Traditionally, Le Mans is known for these draft battles, but when you have an identical top speed, you have to figure out different ways to get by your competitors. So all of these racers, they're going to have to get creative with their moves.
We'll take a look at what happened off the start, but one more driver off and into the gravel. I believe that might have been Nicholas Warner again. Actually, it looks like Rafael Ruiz was the one that went off in the gravel there off the opening lap. But one lap gonna go down this time by as Brandon Hawken continues to pull away. Here's that start. Everybody gets off well, a little bit of contact closer towards the back, but Corey Vervinkt just did not move. And since then has been in the pits. I'm wondering, Joey, if that might be some of the real world issues that comes into the sim world. Possible issue with some of his equipment. He just did not, he moved obviously, but just didn't get that power down. It almost looks like he just put it into gear and then just coasted on. No power getting put to those wheels.
I agree with you. Just kind of an odd start, and then once he kind of barely got moving, you saw him get tagged in the right rear and pick up some damage on the car. So unfortunately for Corey Vervinkt, we already have one car DNF here.
Yeah, he did just completely go out of the session, it looks like. Yes, he also has disconnected. So that is the end of the run for Vervinkt. Is side-by-side battle down the most sand straight. You're looking at Mikolajczyk and Goyette, and around the outside goes the 4 of Goyette, and around Paul Mikolajczyk for 4th. That side-by-side battle that you saw in the mirrors, that was between Melillo and Pressy. Both of them have settled it out, and here comes Mikolajczyk to get that spot back. We just went through a right-hand starting corner for a chicane down the Mulsanne straight. Now we'll go into a left-hand starter. Mikolajczyk on the inside as Pressy looks for a spot on Melillo as well, and they are able to settle it out. Mikolajczyk grabbing that spot back.
And now, I wouldn't doubt to see Ben just kind of leapfrog him right back, but this time Mikolajczyk decides to take the right side of the racetrack in a defensive position. We'll see if Goyette is able to. And look at this. Paul says, you know what? It's easier to go single file through here as you still have the battle between Melillo and Pressy right behind him. They're starting to actually close in to make it 3 or 4 cars on the train.
On board with Melillo in the traction GG number 5 as he roars his way down the straightaway. Side by side between Mikolajczyk and Goyette again. This time it's going to be Goyette on the outside, Mikolajczyk on the inside, edges himself out, and this is not only a position battle, it's down the inside goes Nicholas Pressy. Beautifully done to get that spot from Ben Goyette, but can't make it stick as they go into the tighter portion of this, admittedly, Joey, street circuit. Kind of half purpose built, half street circuit through the forests of France, and it works out, especially for the endurance racing that this place is famous for. But you go from kind of wide racetrack in the first sector, kind of gets a little bit thin towards the middle sector. In some of these portions in the third sector, you better not go side by side or somebody's ending up in that guardrail to the right.
Now look at how aggressive Justin Melillo is getting. This is more what I would call the racetrack part. It's not so much through the French countryside on the public roads. You see the racetrack curbing and the gravel pits throughout here, but this is what I would call a delicious battle. It really starts up here, Paul Mikolajczyk, and then right behind him, Ben Goyette, Nicholas Pressy, Justin Melillo. But these are the areas of the racetrack where you can make these more aggressive moves into these brake zones. And you see Justin Melillo trying to get aggressive here. Josh, one thing I'm noticing, these cars are actually overcharging the brake zones a little.
And a little bit of a mistake there as Melillo going to fall a little bit further back. That was Poulin that was able to get around in one car, 2 cars, hard into the guardrail, right in the middle of the track. That's Goyette and Mikolajczyk around now, going Poulin as well. That's damage to the back end of Poulin's machine. Goyette, Mikolajczyk come together on the entrance to the Mulsanne straight. And what on earth happened in this battle?
I can tell you. And unfortunately, it was a self-inflicted wound from Paul Mikolajczyk out there. Got up over the curbs, and this is part of racing. You know, sometimes you're in the right spot at the right time. Sometimes you're in the wrong spot at the wrong time. And Paul Mikolajczyk jumped over the curbs and unfortunately lost control of his car.
And that's a safety car out on the track now as we work our way on lap number 3. Hawken with the lead will hold the lead. Everybody will slow down to a cautious pace, and we will reset this field. Here's what happened, and it was Mikolajczyk through the first sector, working his way through the Dunlop curb, the Dunlop chicane, through the S's here, hits the curb, hits the grass. Absolutely nowhere for Goyette to go, and you gotta feel it for Goyette. You gotta feel it too for, just look at Poulin. Absolutely nothing he could have done to really avoid that incident. He had it avoided, but so much power in these machines that he put the power down to try and get away from it and ended up being a part of it.
You're right. Right on board here. You're going to see it develop a few cars up. And I think this is actually Justin Melillo that we might be riding with. Justin might actually escape through here, but look at the mess you come up to.
And there's Poulin. He does make contact with Poulin. hard onto the front wing of Malillo's number 5. Not sure how much damage he'll have to that one, or if he's going to go try and get that thing fixed up. Everybody does work their way under the safety car at the current moment, and I believe everybody gets 2 quick repairs as well. They do. So if Goyette and if Mikolajczyk can get towed back to the pits, they were able to use those. Mikolajczyk has disconnected. He will not be taking part in the rest of this race. But what a start, with a lot of battles towards the mid-pack, and then just reaching a crescendo in that battle between Mikolajczyk and Goyette. But as we work our way under the safety car, we'll take a quick break here on FTF1.gg. You're tuning in to the modernracingprince.com FTF1 Series, working under safety car from Circuit de la Sarthe. 3 laps completed. I'm good.
Yep, I'm good.
Welcome back to the modernracingprince.com FTF1 Series, round number 6 from Circuit de la Sarthe on the 24 Tours du Mans. Joshua Lee, Joey Atterbury back with you in the booth as we get ready to go back to racing off of this safety car. An incident with Paul Mikolajczyk and Ben Goyette putting us under this safety car, and unfortunately Jake Poulin just getting a part of that he did not want to get a part of. And one driver just got spun around under the safety car. Tori Pushman is into the guardrail. Not sure how or why, but the 56 is turned around, front wing completely off of that machine, and he'll tow it back to the pit lane. What has happened under safety car?
I'm not sure. The other one that I was noticing is, I believe, was our leader at the time, Nicholas Werner, has been disconnected out there. So there's a few things that I am catching up on the racetrack, and I think we're going to be going back to green here. These tires have had a chance to get off of the car. Some of them have swapped over to some new stuff out there. So you mentioned the tire swap. You got to use 2 compounds. For the most part, looks like this entire field has made that swap.
So it looks like it was an admin disqualification on the part of Werner. It also looks like he did not pit under this safety car, and it was required. So he has been removed from the race. And now that'll put Robert Lowry to the front of the pack, then Brandon Hawkin, then Hamilton Akabueze, then Nicholas Pressey, then Justin Malillo through the edge of the top 5. And that will leave us with much less cars than we started with, but at the same time, now a different race leader and a driver for Brandon Hawkin to try and navigate himself around. Believe we are back to racing. Yes, we are. One driver around in the back. That's going to be Matthew Brewer getting turned around at the exit of the Ford chicanes, and he gets it back going with no noticeable damage. And at the front, Lowry trying to hold on to the race lead, but here comes Brandon Hawkin making his way quickly around and back to the race lead. Akabueze trying to keep up with him, but he'll stay side by side and over the rumble strips, and Lowry now going to almost go around. He saves it after a small trip through the grass.
What a save from Robert Lowry. He was our leader and then got muscled a little bit, but I tell you what, no damage is a whole lot better than being up in the guardrail. And right behind him, Ryan Pandisio as well as Jonathan Goke. They were thinking about making it 3 wide, but looks like Jonathan Goke's going to go around the outside. So Robert Lowry from 1st to 6th in a matter of 2 corners.
And around goes the kickinthetires.net number 97 of Jonathan Goke, but now Pandisio is trying to join that battle. Lowry not done. He will take that spot back as they catch up to Pressey and Malillo. Now 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th within a blanket. Lowry going to go for an inside move on Justin Malillo. Can't pass his way around, and now into the left-hander. He will just barely clear Malillo down the straightaway, and a pass made in the background. Pandisio gonna grab 6th place from Goke.
It's pretty wild. The lane change maneuvers that can happen. Here goes Malillo around Lowry on the racetrack. You got to wonder, maybe a little bit of a slowdown, or maybe just trying to save a little bit in the draft, but just it amazes me, the lane change ability as well as the braking ability on these cars. They have tremendous grip.
Well, when you talk about these cars in a technical sense, these things do not exist in the real world. Perfectly manufactured by Dallara in partnership with iRacing, and they are one of a kind, the Dallara IR01s. And we talk about the tire compounds. Of course, for Formula One with tire compounds, the open wheel cars we're not allowed to talk about anymore have tire compounds, and these Dallara IR01s have tire compounds of their own. Not really tire wear, more that when they heat up, as much as they heat up, they start to taper off in grip. Softs are going to absorb heat much quicker. Mediums absorb heat at about a medium pace, hence the name. And hard tires absorbing heat at a much slower pace. So now, majority of the field on the hard tires. Hamilton Akabueze on medium tires, right up the back wing of current race leader Brandon Hawkin. And the only driver on softs right now looks to be Rafael Ruiz after he got turned around right before that last safety car came out.
Nicholas Pressey, the head of this train here. Robert Lowry right behind him. Justin Malillo and Ryan Pandisio. Looks like Robert Lowry going to poke his nose out to the left side later on the brakes into this last set of chicanes here at Le Mans. It's all about the exit, trying to run away. And look at that. Actually puts the power down quite nicely. He's able to escape from Nicholas Pressey. Now lines up Justin Malillo to head up Nicholas Pressey. And you're right. Noticing those tire compounds, pretty much everybody now on that hard compound. And I think Akabueze, I know it shows over here that he's on a medium, but I believe I see white on those sidewalls. So I think that's pretty much everybody inside the top 8 on the hards.
Hard tires taking precedent, and it is one of the rules that everybody must change their tire compound at least once during this race, and I believe just about everybody has done that successfully under that last safety car. Not going to be worrying about anybody getting held with a disqualification for not changing those tire compounds. Side by side for third again, Melillo on Lowry. Around the outside for Melillo. He'll complete that pass, and now Robert Lowry will have to set back up, and that's all this straight is about, as now Lowry gets loose on the outside. That's going to open the door, as here comes Nicholas Pressey to try and make a pass further up into the top 5 to grab 4th place. But down this Mulsanne straight, Joey, it is so important that when you're working your way through those chicanes, that you set up to make another slipstream pass, and Ruiz goes around again from the back of the pack in 9th.
And we just had Robert Lowry get right into the back of Justin Melillo into the second Mulsanne chicane. I mean, just straight into the back of Melillo out there. So unfortunate for Justin, but that battle was going on. It was really good, and you were just mentioning how close some of these cars were racing, the different tire compounds, and I think it just caught out one of our competitors and misjudged his braking zone.
That is almost exactly what it looks like. Here's that replay. Lowry behind Melillo into the braking zone. There's the tap, sending Melillo off, and Lowry, admittedly, I don't think it was that hard of a hit. He has continued on. I don't see a ton of damage to that front wing of the number 96. I also equally don't see a ton of damage to the back wing of the 5 of Melillo from P6. So I think both of those drivers might be well off okay, although they have lost a good bit of considerable time to the rest of the pack up the road. But that'll put Melillo outside the top 5. Same with Lowry. That puts Jonathan Goke to the edge of the top 5, as he's in a battle with Pandesio as they work their way through the middle portion of the Sector 2. But battle for the lead between Hawken and Akabueze has been on since the end of that safety car. And at the beginning of this race, Joey, Hawken just kind of put the foot down right at the beginning off the start and pulled away to the tune of many seconds on this track. Akabueze, now in second, has kept him reeled in, and yes, that gap was at about 2/10. It was at about a 1/10 and a half. Now it's stretched out to about 3/10. He's keeping him reeled in on the same set of tires, and now as they work their way back down the Mulsanne straight, could we see a pass start to develop as Akabueze keeps him close?
Well, I agree with you. Hamilton Akabueze had a little bit of a mistake on our initial first lap, as I believe this is Robert Lowry coming down, going to get some of that damage fixed, but he learned from it. That full course yellow kind of breathed new life into the race of the 99. He had a great restart, and ever since then, he's just kind of been following in the slipstream of Brandon Hawken, and you think, well, why doesn't he go past him? Why doesn't he drive past our leader? We've seen the draft battles go back and forth, and if we're going to see another pit stop here, if Akabueze is smart, he's saving just a little bit of fuel behind Brandon Hawken, and potentially that'll make his pit stop a little bit shorter.
And something else also to think about with Akabueze sitting in that slipstream, he runs the risk of at least kind of controlling his own destiny in a way, because if he's in the lead, then that invites Hawken to make those moves back on him. If he's in second, just kind of waiting in the wings, and honestly, it can invite a lot of different strategies, like you were just mentioning, Joey, about trying to stay within striking distance, trying to save a little bit of fuel, make his pit stop a little bit shorter. I think being in second also might invite some alternate strategies. Does he go for an undercut? Does he go for an overcut? In the lead, you just kind of have to pick your battle way before you fight it and end up coming to pit lane at what might not be a great strategy, but you're able to react a little bit more than proact if you're in second place.
You're right. It gives you a little bit more time. You can kind of read what's going on out there. But the other thing that we haven't even talked about is, do you see any other cars in any of these frames? With these two cars running nose to tail, not fighting each other, they are the two fastest cars on the racetrack. They're laying down close to qualifying times. They've stretched it out to 12 seconds over third place. So as long as Hamilton Akabueze stays within that drafting distance of our leader, Brandon Hawken, these two are just going to continue to pull away from everybody, and then they can fight it out at the end between themselves.
Fastest on the racetrack, bar none, by the way. They each have ran a 3:05 as their fastest lap. And get this, 3:05.426, best lap for Brandon Hawken. 3:05.526 for Hamilton Akabueze. Literally 1/10 separating their fastest laps of the race right now for your top two. And they're about a consistent 5 seconds quicker than the rest of the field. Great times being laid down by the top two. And in the mid-pack, obviously now, it's been a little bit estranged ever since that Melillo and Lowry accident. That's kind of invited the mid-pack to spread on out, but they're still relatively close, especially if we start to see those tires start to heat up. We start to see some lap times fall off. Pandesio only has about 2.2 seconds up to Pressy, about the same gap from Gok to Pandesio. Melillo still within 1.4 seconds of Gok up in front, and then down from there you get a little bit more gap with 17 seconds between Brower and Melillo, about 9 seconds between Goyette and Brower. But all this to say, they're still relatively close together, and one mistake, Joey, a handful of mistakes, heated up tires causing slower lap times, just going to invite this mid-pack to close on in on each other even quicker.
Not to mention, these cars are incredibly fast, so just one little slip-up, not even a mistake, but just overstepping the limit just a tiny little bit can draw in that competitor right behind. And we've seen what happens when you actually go off the track and into the grass. It seems like you don't lose that one position, but you're going to lose multiple, even if the competitors are 1.5, maybe 2 the gaps.
3 seconds now. I'm wondering why that gap has grown so much. Did Akabueze overheat his tires? Because last time by, it was 2.5 seconds. That was the gap between the top two. With Akabueze now with 4.2 seconds, something had to have happened to that second place runner. And further back in the pack, no battles getting any closer, with Melillo trying to chase down 1 second, separating himself and Jonathan Gok now.
Yeah, and that's probably the closest battle we've got on the racetrack. Justin Melillo trying to claw that gap in, and actually what I'm seeing, you're right here, he's right at that 1 second. He smells the draft, he sniffs the draft, but I'm looking at the top speeds. They're pretty much identical. Now, Melillo is starting to get about 2 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour. So looks like the number 5 car is starting to draw in on Jonathan Gok.
9/10 that gap as Melillo in the slipstream tries to regain time. Remember how Melillo got back into 6th? Contact with Lowry heading into the chicane, and that sent him right off the racetrack, lost him 3 positions, and now as they sit, it's 7/10 in between him and Gok, both of them on the hard tire. I'm wondering if it's very similar to what happened to Akabueze, as around goes Akabueze off the exit of the Mulsanne Straight.
That is a tough one. If you're out in P2, you've been trying to keep pace with our leader, Brandon Hawken, and it looks like Hamilton Akabueze just kind of went too deep into this 90-degree corner known as the Mulsanne corner. I don't see any big lockup here, just too much speed, not able to make the turn and off into the gravel.
So easy to make a mistake, especially in that corner at that high rate of speed. And well, Joey, now that's opened up the entire Pandora's box for Brandon Hawken. He's right back to where he began this race, 12 seconds, comfortably in the lead. And of course, now still the favorite to win this race is further back. Gok and Melillo have since traded spots, and Melillo is on a tear again to try and catch Pandesio.
Yeah, and he's closing it in a little bit by little bit, but I tell you what, when these cars hit that rev limiter and it stops that top speed, Justin Melillo has got to just be banging his head off of the steering wheel saying, come on, let me get a little bit closer out there, as it looks like maybe Matthew Brewer had a problem on the racetrack. And the other thing we got to remember, with how many laps are left and the time limit that's left, I would assume we're definitely going to see the cars come down pit lane again, and that's going to introduce a whole nother variable.
A whole other variable is right. And now, as we assume we're going to have to make another pit stop, a handful of the field have used their fast repairs, mainly Pushman, Ruiz, and Goyette, with the top 7 at this point, all not using their fast repairs, and a handful of them not getting into any issues at all. But last time into the box, of course, was under that safety car. We have not pitted under green yet. Assuming we still have to get there, what tire compounds do these drivers go on to? A lot of them started on the medium compound. Handful of them started on the hards. Everybody was brought down into the pit lane under the safety car to change tires. And now Melillo right back into form, exactly where he wants to be, getting right by Pandesio for 4th.
He's been working on clawing in that gap and finally was able to capitalize on the draft. A nice move into the first chicane on the Mulsanne. But now you're going to see Ryan Pandesio kind of just give it right back to him. He's in the draft closing in on Justin Melillo, but it looks like he's actually going to lift off the throttle here. Maybe realizes that Justin has a little bit more pace inside of his race car right now, and maybe he's going to just kind of break out the notepad and the pen, take some notes, see where am I falling off, where can I improve my own lap times, and then when I come in, take that extra set of tires. Maybe do you go on to the mediums to take that risk, take that gamble, but I think it's going to be hards from here on out.
I think it's really all they can do as Melillo gets on the gas, goes almost off the track, and going off the track literally is Jonathan Goke in the background. But Melillo, Pandesio back to side by side, and they will be side by side as they go into the right-hander. They're going to reach the Indianapolis chicane very, very quickly as they race their way down the straightaway. Melillo in a prime spot here. Can he make that pass work? But around the outside goes Pandesio. He'll make that pass work and get that 4th spot back right about as quickly as Melillo was able to take it down the Mulsanne.
Oh, and Melillo once again a little bit deep on the brakes going into that corner. And I mentioned just the slightest little mistakes that we're seeing on the racetrack, and even that can end up biting you as a competitor. And ooh, looks like one of our front runners, this is our leader, Brandon Hawken. He's coming down pit road, so it looks like about 7 laps on this stint.
So that means if it's 7 laps on this stint, either this is a strategy call from Hawken to be able to make it all the way to the end of this race on this tank of fuel, or we're still going to need to pit at least one more time. Hawken in, Akabueze also followed him in, Pressy also in, Pandesio in, Melillo in, everybody is in, Goke in. Does Lowry follow them in as well? Top 6 continue to work their way into the pit lane. Hawken is out. He goes onto the hard tires still. Akabueze will stay on the hards as well. Pressy out. Melillo right into his box. Not much variation within the tire compounds. Looks like hards is going to be the way to go for the majority of this field.
And I am seeing Robert Lowry come in and make that stop, and that's intriguing to me, because Robert could have stretched it out another few laps. He'd only been in about 4 laps ago, I believe, to fix some of that damage. But now that the pit stop cycles are complete, it makes sense. You're going to see one more stop at about 7 more laps. That's going to put us right around lap 17, lap 18, and then the competitors will be good until the end. So one more stop left here today.
One stop left and just about halfway done with this race. Of course, still have a couple of laps still left to go, but 18.9 seconds the gap out of the pit lane. Ryan Pandisio about 10 seconds behind Nicholas Pressey. That has kept the gaps of each of these cars to about as max as they have been all day. And one driver around on the Mulsanne. Who is that? Nicholas Pressey just went around.
Oh no, that is one of our front runners. He was in third place. Actually, he still hangs on to the third place on the racetrack, but that's not what you want to be doing. Now he finds himself 12 seconds and growing behind Hamilton Akabueze.
He didn't lose, he lost time to the cars in front, but at least when you're talking about the cars behind, he didn't lose a whole lot of time. Pandisio just went around. Malillo gets by for fourth. Goat gets by for fifth. Pandisio down to sixth.
Drama's on the racetrack, and it's all kind of unfolding. We're not even really halfway into this race, and I wonder if this is a case of the tires still getting up to temperature. These cars are still on their outlap, and it looks like Pandisio was going to the throttle, maybe just lit up the back end and looped it around on him.
At least in the case of Pressey, it was very much the same thing. Just kind of lit those back tires up and got turned around. Pandisio very much also looks like the same thing. Cold tires, obviously, Joey, are one of the biggest problem points of just coming out of the pit lane, getting back into a rhythm of a green flag run. And that's exactly, I think, what we are seeing right now is a lot of drivers on cold tires, just not used to them. Of course, haven't been on cold tires really in a natural sense since the opening lap of this race. Obviously, when they pitted during the safety car, they had about a pace lap or two to warm those tires up before we got to full pace.
It can be a bit deceiving as well. You're used to warm, fresh, hot tires, albeit they are used. They do have a grip level, and you're just kind of familiar with the rhythm that you've been doing the last handful of laps. So, yeah, you come down pit road, you kind of take a breather, maybe take a sip of water, and kind of try to reset the rhythm. But when you go back out there, some things have changed, including those tires. And, yeah, it can definitely catch you out. And in this case, it caught out a couple of our drivers.
Closest gap on the track now is that 2-second gap between Goak and Pandisio. Gap for the lead back up to 20 seconds. Consistent lap time starting to get laid back down as last time by for Hawken. Obviously, it was his outlap from the pits. But if there's anything to say about how fast Hawken has been, fastest outlap we've had from the pits all night long. And this time by the start finish, which admittedly will be in about 2 minutes, will be the halfway point of this race with Hawken and Akabueze still your top two. Pressey, Malillo, and Goak through the edge of the top five. And I mentioned that closest gap being Goak and Malillo. Well, at this point, Malillo is still pulling away. Admittedly, not as quick on Jonathan Goak as I think he would have thought or really wants at this stage as they fight for further spots in the top five.
I'm looking to see if we have any takers on alternate sets of tires out there, but it looks like for the most part, every single car on the racetrack is on those white tires. Oh, looks like Matthew Brewer as well as maybe Tori Pushman, some cars a little bit further in the back, but all of our front runners, everybody up front, they're all on those hard tires. And given that they are running these full 7-lap fuel stints, I wouldn't expect anything to change unless you're really trying to throw a curveball.
Gap has closed by about 2/10 between Goak and Malillo. Still with 45 minutes left on the clock. Predicted to have about 38 minutes remaining in this race. Unless we get another safety car, I don't think we're at a threat of reaching that time threshold, but anything is possible. We already have seen one safety car tonight, and if we get some drivers running closer together, not going to say another safety car is impossible, but once I said closest battle is about 2 seconds separated right now as Melillo, I believe, just made a crucial mistake, or Jonathan Goke just turned the wick up. 1.2 seconds is that gap now in this battle. What happened to Melillo? He'll stretch it back out to 1.6 down the straightaway, but it went from 2.5 to 1.6 very, very quickly.
It's just how fast these cars are. Those little itty-bitty mistakes translates to huge chunks of time, huge chunks of track position, and Justin Melillo making a couple little mistakes here this lap, and you're right. Jonathan Goke starting to close up that gap, but through these twistier bits here, I'm seeing Justin Melillo get back up on the wheel, hold that 1.7, 1.8 second gap between himself and the competitor behind, and that's exactly what he's got to do. He's got to maintain that gap till he gets back out onto the Mulsanne, because you're in iRacing, that draft really starts to come into effect about 1.2 seconds, and I say that Jonathan Goke has closed it up now to 1 second back.
What happened to Melillo that has caused Goke to close that gap even quicker? This has become the closest battle on the track, and now in a battle that is alive and well. 6/10 separating Melillo and Goke for fourth. We go past halfway done in this race. About 36 predicted minutes left and 12 laps to go around Circuit de la Sarthe in the 24 Tours du Mans. Down the Mulsanne straight. Goke closing the gap. Still 5/10. Not going to be enough to make it happen through this first chicane, but I think Melillo's feeling the pressure. He tries to swerve, moves up to the outside. Does he play enough defense? And he's not even going to be able to have any pressure going into the chicane.
Jonathan Goke with a mistake, though. He spun up those rear tires, so we saw the competitors maybe have problems on the outlap with the cold temperature, but this time Jonathan Goke just squeezed onto the gas too early, too soon, trying to get up the back end of Justin Melillo, spins the car around, and now inserts Ryan Pandicio into the battle.
That was a gift for Ryan Pandicio as he gets very, very close now to the back wing of Jonathan Goke. Out of the Mulsanne straight they'll go, and this is going to be a very difficult spot to make those moves work. Pandicio, I think, is feeling the pressure because he's going to try and go around the outside. Does he make the move work on Goke into the left-hander? They'll stay side by side to the apex. He won't. Goke will keep it. Crossover move from Pandicio is not going to work. Not enough momentum off the exit of that corner. Gap is now to 5/10.
Gonna have one more potential opportunity here going down into Indianapolis, and I actually think the cars are running on different sides of the road here because you got to remember, you mentioned it, this is a street road, right? The road is crowned. So with these cars running so low to the ground, what they're doing is they're avoiding that giant crown in the center of the road, trying not to bottom out the car when they're at 200 miles an hour.
Well, I mentioned earlier on in the show, and a lot of the drivers were mentioning, once they got their hands on this fixed setup, yes, it is a fixed setup series here in the modernracingprince.com FTF1 series, they were worried about the cars bottoming out. They said there are a lot of scraping on the floor. So you just mentioned it, Joey, and another way to possibly avoid a little bit more of that bottoming out, a little bit more of that floor scraping down that Mulsanne straight. But Goke and Pandicio is not over as way off track goes Goke. Not sure if that's going to be a slowdown. Might have been a 1X for an off track, but he doesn't have to slow down much. But the door is now open for Pandicio. Can't get there as they enter the chicane.
Oh, and now Goke locks up. He's going to have to take the shortcut. That'll be a slowdown. Ryan Pandicio says, thank you very much. I will take another place. And the fall continues for Jonathan Goke.
That was unfortunate. He was definitely feeling that pressure from Ryan Pandicio behind and just completely missed his braking zone in that final chicane. He even locked up those front tires, kept trying to make the corner, could not do it. And that puts Goke now outside of the top 5 in 6th. After starting in P11, it's still a solid run as Pandicio now makes a mistake. That opens the door for Goke to get that spot back for P5.
It was like deja vu. If you remember Paul Mikolajczyk and his jump up over the curb. Well, Ryan Pandicio just had the same issue, and now we're side by side. Pandicio on driver's right, Goke on driver's left. We're going to see who's most brave on the brakes into the first chicane. Looks like they're both going for it. Goke locks up, barely keeps it on the track. Oh, almost into Pandicio.
Pandicio going to run away from that grouping as Goke loses now 1.3 seconds in that exchange. Goes to show how easy it is to make mistakes in these Dallara IRL1s. I mean, he just got a little bit too far on that inside curb, hopped the wheels up, locked the brakes, and that was all that move was for Goke and Pandicio. Working lap 14, and we had a handful of battles there. Now they've all settled their way out, but starts to give us a clearer picture of where these drivers are going to be as we enter into the next pit cycle. At this point, it's going to be Hawken and Akabueze, the top two, Pressy, Malillo, and Pandicio now in that rotating door of drivers at the edge of the top five. And more issues for Goke. He'll lose a spot now to Robert Lowry. And that was, I believe, another just overcook of the brakes at the edge of the Mulsanne straight and sends himself almost off the track. He just lost enough time that Lowry was able to get the spot.
Yes, you are right once again. Unfortunately for Jonathan Goke, I mean, last lap, he was battling Justin Malillo, trying to overtake for fourth, and now just through several mistakes, he has fallen. Ryan Pandicio's got by him, Robert Lowry's got by him, and now more problems for Jonathan Goke. You gotta wonder if there's some damage on the race car or if just the dominoes are all falling. Like the saying says, when it rains, it pours.
And it is pouring now for Goke, but this has led to side by side between Lowry and Pandicio. Battle at the edge of the top five. I just mentioned that rotating door of drivers. How about Robert Lowry back into the top five? Remember the issues he had earlier on in this race? Last green flag run, or last pit cycle, I should say, ran into the back of Justin Malillo, sent Malillo down a couple of spots, sent himself down a few spots. Now his regain is in the top five and trying to get a further away from Ryan Pandicio. 1.4 seconds that gap.
And I'm looking at his lap times, very competitive with the next two cars on the racetrack. Now, it's going to be a while before he catches Justin Malillo, but if he keeps turning these laps, it looks like he will catch Justin probably with 1 or 2 laps to go.
One driver around at the top of the hill there and the Dunlop chicanes. That was Rafael Ruiz. Yes, he did have a spin. I was wondering if he had a spin or if he was letting the leaders go by. He did have a spin at the top of the Dunlop chicane. So that will keep Rafael Ruiz 1 lap down and in P10. He's the first of your drivers 1 lap down. Tori Pushman back there in 11th. She had an issue right off of the safety car restart. That puts them in P11. Gap has worked its way further now on everybody as Rafael Ruiz completely missing a braking zone there. He'll take the chicane road through the tires in the middle of that Mulsanne straight. And now, just like that, closest gap, 2.4 seconds with Ben Goyette. I think a perfect time, Joey Atterbury, to talk about the strategy that we think is going to happen in this next pit cycle, because hard tires have been the crowd favorite throughout the entirety of this race. Are we going to see any changes when they come down into the pit lane? Seems like the hard tire is the perfect all-around tire. It absorbs heat well. It's great for this 8.47 mile long racetrack. But does anybody go off the deep end and try something unique?
I don't think so. I think stick to what's working on the racetrack. And you got to remember, you have to run a full fuel stint out there. It's not a qualifying stint. It's not half of a stint. You got to run the full fuel stint. So I don't think we're going to see anything but the hard tires from here on out. And if we do, it'll be more of an experiment than anything.
Working our way on lap 16. 9 laps to go in the 24 Tours du Mans. And Brandon Hawken continues to lead the way. Hamilton Akabueze in second. Nicholas Pressey, Justin Malillo, and Robert Lowry through the edge of the top 5. Green flag pit stops on the horizon. We'll take one final break here on FTF.GG, and when we come back, the conclusion of the ModernRacingPrince.com FTF1 Series from Circuit de la Sarthe. Just 9 laps to go and a pit cycle left. You don't want to miss the end of this one. Drama in the ModernRacingPrince.com FTF1 Series, the 24 at Tours du Mans. Brandon Hawken, the dominant car all night long, lost from the server due to download packet loss. He's back in now, looking to come back out from the pits, but Joey Atterbury, 1 lap down. His race is over.
Over. And it's such a shame because he had put together the perfect race, was executing excellent pit stops, hadn't made a mistake all day, pulled away from every competitor behind him, and now he's sitting in pit lane.
Sitting in pit lane, wondering what would have happened if that did not happen. He just puts in the driver's chat, thanks iRacing, with a not very happy looking face in there as well. That changes the course of the lead. That puts Hamilton Akabueze up into the front of the field with still a 26-second gap over Nicholas Pressey behind. He's got still 37 seconds down to Justin Malillo as Hawken works his way out of the pits. Now he will say, I think, 1 lap down. However, my timing is also showing him as on the lead lap. I believe he should be 1 lap down. If he is on the lead lap, somehow the door is still going to be open for Brandon Hawken to win this thing.
Yeah, he's definitely got to be a lap down, because the way iRacing timing and scoring works is that the lap that he started, that he disconnected on, he technically is still on. He has not advanced to pit road and then continued. So, yeah, unfortunately, Brandon Hawken will be a full lap down on the racetrack once timing and scoring sorts itself out there. But something else to notice, the action on the racetrack, I know that there's some gaps between the cars, but the pit stop cycle is starting to come up here.
And it does look like a scoring issue for Matthew Brewer as well. This is Brewer coming into the pit lane, but he should be on the tail end of the lead lap in 7th. Hawkins should be 1 lap down in 8th, showing as 1 minute 24 seconds behind your race leader of Hamilton Akabueze. But I think it's a little bit of a Crandon situation in the off-road world. Such a big racetrack. Probably the scoring loops just getting a little bit confused with Hawken coming out of the pits at the time he did. But you mentioned pit stops being on, Joey. Akabueze is in. We have a whole 25 seconds before we see if Nicholas Pressey is going to try anything different. But speaking of different, when Hawken exited the pit lane, it looked like he was going to throw on medium tires, ended up still with the hards. I think it's safe to say everybody's going to go hard compound.
I would think so. Everybody's probably going to go hard compound. And maybe the one variable that I am seeing out here is these cars, they're technically doing 7 laps, but they're completing 6 laps on the racetrack and then having to pit for fuel. Look at the time we've got left, 7 laps remaining. So I'm curious, do you split up this last stop maybe into a softer compound, or do you try to stretch it that 1 extra lap?
And will any strategy dethrone Akabueze? As everybody else comes into the pit lane for the most part here, Goyette is in, yes, and Brandon Hawken is going to pass all of those drivers on the pit lane to get himself a little bit further up towards getting his lap back. But Akabueze, even though he was given the lead off of an issue for the race leader, Joey, no reason to talk down to Hamilton Akabueze at all today, because he has had such a dominating day as Hawken mounts the curb through the Ford chicane. And now that gap is going to settle itself out, I think, as he works his way around a scoring loop. That's actually where he is going to settle in, because I believe he goes on to lap 18.
Yeah.
So he is on the lead lap.
How this happened, I have no idea, but talk about lifeline thrown out for Brandon Hawken. Somehow he lost, about a minute on the racetrack through all of that? Not really sure how he pulled that one off, but sometimes you look up to the racing gods and you just say, oh, a blessing from the Lord.
He got a nice blessing, because I believe this is we're getting tin hat here. He's
still in front
server.
of Pandicio and Ben Goyette and all of them.
He exited the server lap 16. He exited the pits, I think it was lap 17. You know why it was lap 17? He got towed back to the pits and crossed the start finish.
Huh. And I wonder
that
how
is
much
a gift from the racing gods. Literally a gift.
Well, we talk about varying strategies out there on the racetrack, and this is a bold strategy. We're going to see if it pays off for him.
Can Hawken win this race? 49 seconds is the gap. Normally, I would say no. When all that Hawken has done in this race is get the lead and pull away to the tune of 25 seconds, I think we might see a possibility. However, Hawken has lost a little bit of time, and he's also going to have traffic to deal with as Malillo and Lowry are back close-ish together. 1.3 seconds is that gap. And as everybody completes their pit stops, it'll be 6 to go this time by for Akabuese. 33 seconds worth of a gap between himself and Pressy, as half second now between Lowry and Melillo, as Hawken trying to catch up to that group. He is about 3 seconds back of the road.
Well, and I think he's loving what he's seeing, because Lowry has caught Melillo. That means these two are going to fight. They're going to slow themselves down, and that's just going to draw Brandon Hawken right onto the back of this battle. And this battle is a podium battle. So he's disconnected from the server, came back, and now fighting for the podium, his second lap on track.
I will compare this to something that happened last night to myself running NASCAR iRacing Series Fixed at Sonoma. Started from the pits because I wanted road safety rating and I rating. Climbed my way through the field, got the lead, pitted, had a drive-through penalty for too many incident points, and still won by about 25 seconds. My road I rating is like 700, so it's not that impressive. However, it's a little bit more impressive. Brandon Hawkins setting a new fastest lap, and Robert Lowry back up into third.
Yeah, Robert Lowry was able to make that move. We saw him close in on Justin Melillo there, was able to capitalize into the first chicane. Haven't seen too many moves going down there, but actually gets a poor run out onto the Mulsanne. Look at this full shake and bake slingshot from Justin Melillo coming up.
Where is he going to go for that move? Does he go for it down the straightaway? He does. Slipstream down the Mulsanne straight to the inside. Does he complete that pass in time? He will, and get that spot covered off. Now this is going to open the door for Lowry. Does Lowry go for a move into the chicane? He's not even nearly close enough, and Lowry's going to wreck himself. He gets too much on the throttle, and now he's going to take out Brandon Hawken.
Brandon Hawken coming into the chicane at full speed. Evidently did not see the spinning Robert Lowry, and now both of them have to take the tow back to pit road.
Hawken got a gift. The racing gods giveth, and they taketh away. Here's what happened. It started with Lowry. Now, watch Lowry in the middle of this chicane. Melillo slows down. Lowry doesn't slow down for the rest of that apex. There's nothing Hawken really could have done there. He's going too quick to notice what's happening.
I agree. Hawken, it's not Hawken's fault. If anything, yeah, Lowry, when you spin, you got to go both feet in. If you're going to re-enter the racetrack, you got to make sure it is a safe time to re-enter the racetrack. It's the heat of the moment. You're in the battle and you want to get going as fast as possible. However, there are others out there too.
We have had so many changes of how this race is going to go in the last 5 laps. It is borderline insane. But the one constant now, since Brandon Hawken lost connection to the server, is Akabuese. And I mentioned it, that we really should not talk down about that 99's race tonight. And I really mean it, because he has been consistent. If he wasn't in first, he was running in second. He qualified in P2, stayed there off the start, and has stayed in P2 up until Brandon Hawken lost connection. Then he takes the lead, and if he would have gotten the lead by chance, didn't deserve this win, Joey, we would be talking about Nicholas Pressy gaining time, but we're only talking about Akabuese pulling away from the 11.
He has done a fantastic job out there, and I know that he probably will look back and see that there's been a few mistakes that he's made, but he's done enough to be 33, call it 34 seconds in front of second place Nicholas Pressy. And if you're talking to him on the radio, you got to coach him to say, hey, look, what you're doing is good. You don't need qualifying laps out there. What we need is consistency. You got 33 seconds. You can afford to give up a second a lap. And being a racing driver, he's going to say, you know what? No, I'm going to start to keep on pushing. However, he will keep it within those limits, and that's exactly what he needs to do to bring it home.
About 14 minutes net left worth of laps. About 20 minutes left on the clock. Been mentioning that time limit because we are encroaching on the point of if we do see another full course caution and a virtual safety car, we could see that time limit come into play. As of right now, we are still A-okay in terms of lap count and in terms of not reaching that time limit. If it does get to that point, we'll let you know, and that will be the determining factor in when this race ends. But right now, we're still good on laps, and as Akabueze completes his 20th lap on the night, we'll go to 4 laps to go. And now about half the field sits in pit road. The latest driver in there being Brandon Hawken. Same thing with Robert Lowry. Top 7 remain on the racetrack. Of those 7, top 5 are on the lead lap. Closest battle within that top 5, 7 seconds between Pandicio and Goyette. I think, Joey, we don't really talk about drivers spreading out too much at Circuit de la Sarthe, and that's hard to believe. 8.47 miles, of course drivers are going to spread out. I think we're also used to about 20 prototypes, about 20 GT3s, and about 40 other cars in a different class, plus 1 Garage 56 entry from Hendrick Motorsports. In a field of already 16, now seeing a field of about 7 running on the track right now, of course, we're going to see drivers spread out. Of course, that's going to happen. As Brandon Hawken comes back onto the racetrack, we'll add now 8 drivers on the racetrack, and he will officially be 1 lap down. But that's just something that was going to happen regardless. And I think all the drivers, we haven't really seen any incidents that were drivers going too far in terms of contact, running too close together. It's been mistakes with this tough racetrack that have led to almost all of our incidents tonight.
And if you want to talk about the racing that we've seen, like the type of racing, you are right. Traditionally, Le Mans, we're going to see spread out racing. However, it's more of a draft battle. And now we have this fixed setup where the cars are tapping out their top gear at about 200 miles an hour. You don't really have that traditional draft battle anymore where you have the leapfrogs down the straightaways where you have big time runs. You more get the single run, and then you're forcing to be really, really aggressive next to your competitor late on the brakes. And I think that's what really separates all of the racing out, because you have to kind of push it 12 tenths in the tough areas, and in the nice, calm straightaway areas, you're actually just kind of sitting tight.
Four laps still remaining as Akabueze pulls away at the front of the field. But there is a lot that is coming up in this week on FTF.gg. That, of course, starts with Sunday night doubleheader. Bar Visuals FTF Cup Series will be racing from Virtual Road America starting at 8 p.m. Same thing with the Winstel iRacing League at Daytona. Sunday, June 11th as well at 8 p.m. Rockingham for the Course Summer Series, sponsored by SimWrapMarket.com, will be on Monday night, June the 12th, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. That is from Rockingham, those Gen 4 Cup cars, with the Penguin RC Grand Am Series back for another round Thursday night, June the 15th from Watkins Glen. Next round of the FTF1 Series, sponsored by ModernRacingPrince.com. That Mystery Grand Prix is Road America. Same place the FTF Cup Series will be this weekend. That is next Friday night, starting at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time with qualifying coverage. Then another round of the Bar Visuals FTF Cup Series from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. That'll be Saturday night, June the 17th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Following that, another round of Winstel from Chicagoland. Following that, another round of Core from Kansas. Both of those utilizing the Gen 4 Cup cars. That is Sunday and Monday night, 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern, respectively. So a ton coming up on FTF.gg in the next week. And a lot of interesting tracks as well. But we continue on here from Virtual Circuit de la Sarthe and the waning laps of the 24 Tours du Mans. 3 laps remaining. It'll be 2 to go. Once your leader, Hamilton Akabueze, finishes his last 6 miles on this racetrack, we will not reach anything within time limit. 8 minutes 30 seconds predicted remaining, 14 minutes 30 seconds remaining on the clock. And I think at this point, Joey, nobody close enough to even warrant a possible safety car coming out, and the Akabueze domination continues. Last 5 laps, he's gained 10 seconds on Pressey from second.
He is just a machine, throwing down some 3:06.6 lap times. And to put that into perspective, that's within a second of his fastest. So he has definitely turned up the wick out there. And I think just the one thing that's catching my eye is we got 3 laps to go. And mind you, that's a full 3 laps on the racetrack. I believe, per my calculations, the car can only make it another 2 laps. So I wonder if any of these other battles maybe a little bit further in the back, primarily Ben Goyette, maybe looking at Ryan Pandisio. Do you come in 1 lap early, throw those soft tires on it, and try to make a little bit of an undercut work at the end of this race?
Looking further back within this top 5, Goyette and Pandisio might end up in a battle relatively soon. It kind of depends on how quickly Goyette can catch up to Pandisio. I mentioned earlier on in the show those tire compounds. Now, the hard tire was the favored tire among the field. Of course, no tire wear necessarily, just absorption of heat. More heat buildup in the tire, less grip those tires have. And only one driver within these front runners had decided to go apart from the hard compound tire. That is second place Nicholas Pressey. He is on the medium tire to finish out this race. Not doing much to catch up to Akabueze, but the 2 hard compound runners of Pandisio and Goyette, 4th and 5th, might be in a battle here soon as they gain a little bit of time down the Mulsanne straight, but not enough to make any moves worthy yet.
That's an excellent observation. I didn't even notice that Nicholas Pressey was on those yellow tires, and I don't think it's paying off in the long run. You just mentioned that Hamilton Akabueze had pulled out another 10 seconds just in the prior couple laps, and I'm looking at the data. These yellow tires have fallen off a long time ago. Unfortunately, Nicholas Pressey just doing nothing but losing time in terms of the big picture right now.
2 laps to go as Akabueze just went by the start-finish straight. And he continues to lead in that number 99. Pressey from second, 45 seconds back. Malillo, Pandisio, Goyette rounding out the top 5. Even the drivers 1 lap down. Of course, we've talked about the turmoil that has kind of happened for Brendan Hawken in the last couple of moments in this race. Losing connection to the server, then getting caught up in an incident. Still not a bad night for Hawken at all. He is in 6th place still, which after losing connection to the server, Joey, I think the only track other than the Nürburgring that he wouldn't have lost a lap on is Circuit de la Sarthe.
I'm kind of chuckling to myself a little bit over here because when I saw him wreck out and where they wrecked, I knew he was going to hit the tow truck. The only big difference is that he had a lot of damage this time, and I just don't think he had the same tow truck driver as he had the first time, because you're right, he did go down 1 lap. I want to know who was that tow truck driver he got that first time.
They put the work in. I think they might have just had another Dallara IRO1 strapped into the back of it and just towed him around on the back around Circuit de la Sarthe. Or they know a really, really good shortcut that I think the rest of the drivers in the field are trying to look for.
Yeah, I think it's that second option out there, is that virtual shortcut. And I think you got to put a special folder in for that one.
Yeah, whoever was towing him back to the pits, I think needs to get in one of these cars, because it might be the only person on a perfect night for Brendan Hawken that can't really hold a candle to him in trying to get the lead away. But as they work their way through the middle sector. The penultimate time tonight. We'll take that white flag for Hamilton Akabueze, and of course we'll have about another minute and a half of drivers working their way down the straightaways and coming across the start-finish line to finish out this race. But Akabueze, perfect night for him. Did everything he needed to. Mistake for Brandon Hawken. Well, I guess the world throwing him some bad luck his way as he lost connection to the server, but then another incident as well to boot on top of that. Akabueze has done everything he's needed to do and solved all of his problems, stayed out of trouble, and he'll take the white flag from Circuit de la Sarthe one final time around as the 99 looks to complete a great night from France.
Well, it looks like my fuel calculations were off. They're going to be able to make it the entire stint here, and Hamilton Akabueze just has to complete one more lap on the racetrack, and he will find that checkered flag.
Not talking about a lot of slipstreams saving some fuel at this point. Closest gap still remains Bendicio and Goyette. And Goyette has not closed that gap really any further. 1.5 seconds and now 1.6. And it's kind of stayed that way throughout the last handful of laps. But one final time around for Akabueze. 54 seconds that gap. How about the night for Nicholas Pressey as well? Great night for him. Justin Malillo running third. Another great night for him as well. And we're seeing a lot of drivers just having some solid nights. And I think that's what a lot of them really only could have asked for. Is we see Jonathan Goke, another driver that has had issues tonight, just crossed the line to go onto his white flag lap. And a lot of trouble for Goke in this entirety of the race tonight, and just unfortunate. He had some quick pace at the earlier on in the night, Joey, but just could not keep it up. He's going to end up P7 if all goes right.
Yeah, and I know that Hamilton's going to be coming home here pretty soon, but I want to draw our eye to Justin Malillo and Nicholas Pressey. Nicholas Pressey is on those yellow tires. He is struggling huge. Last lap time, he was 9 seconds slower than Justin Malillo. Well, guess what? Justin only 6 seconds back. He could close this in on the last lap.
Can he? Will he do it? We saw just a moment ago Ben Goyette pulling into the pit lane. He puts on a set of soft compound tires to finish out this race. Not sure if he ran the fuel tank dry and had to pit for fuel, or decided to come in for a late change onto those soft compound tires. But regardless, he is back on the racetrack now. And the driver out in front, winningest driver this season, tied with Ben Fuller with 2 wins, 4 podiums as well, as he makes his 7th start of the season here. He looks for win number 3. His only main rival in the championship has been Brandon Hawken. 12 points separating the top 2 spots right now. And Akabueze is looking to put more points in his back pocket in the ModernRacingPrince.com FTF1 Series Championship. Through the final Ford chicanes and across the start-finish line at Circuit de la Sarthe, Hamilton Akabueze is victorious from the forests of France.
What a win for that number 99, but drawing our eye just this little bit further back, this is Nicholas Pressey. He's been able to maintain a little bit of a gap, but now a mistake from Pressey. He runs wide. It's going to close up now. Justin Malillo finds himself 3 seconds back at the point on the racetrack where you need the tires the most.
3 seconds. Here comes Malillo trying to breathe down Pressey's neck. 5 starts this season for Pressey. Sits 22nd in the standings. Only 1 top 5. He's looking to walk away with a podium here and get 2nd place. Malillo is looking for his 2nd podium of the season and 2nd top 5 finish. Through the Ford chicanes to end out the final lap for the 11 car. He is looking for that 2nd place, and he's going to end up getting it. Just one final chicane to navigate, and he'll navigate it well enough. Melillo can't catch for second, but it's Pressy that'll sit second step of the podium. Justin Melillo will be on the third step as he walks away with another podium finish this season. Third in the points as well. Great points night for him.
Good points night for Justin Melillo. Here comes Ryan Pandisio through the final chicanes to complete his 24th lap. Just off the podium, but fourth place, nothing to scoff at.
Waiting on the last couple of drivers to work their way across the line. Next one on the lead lap will be Ben Goyette, as he'll navigate his way through the final couple of sectors. Jake Poulin also needs to work his way across the line. He, however, sits 11 laps down after an incident earlier on in the Grand Prix. Through the last couple of corners and the final Ford chicanes. And out onto the front straightaway he goes. That'll be the end of our lead lap runners. Ben Goyette walks away with a top 5. And so far this season for Goyette, that is going to be his third of the campaign. The 24 Taurus Du Mans finishes up, and we take a look at your full finishing results with Hamilton Akabueze in first, Nicholas Pressy in second, Justin Melillo third, Ryan Pandisio fourth, with Ben Goyette rounding out your top 5. And that is all the drivers that were on the lead lap. Brendan Hawken, Jonathan Goke, both one lap down. Matthew Brewer, Robert Lowry, and Tori Pushman gonna round out the top 10 on the finishing results, with all these drivers running into mistake at some point on the racetrack or not qualifying at all. Rafael Ruiz in 11th, Jake Poulin in 12th, Nicholas Werner 13th, Paul Mikolajczyk 14th, Bryce Saucier rounding out your top 15. Corey Verving to round out the drivers that took to the grid. John Poole III, Blake Trawick, and Cody Ware did not qualify for tonight's Grand Prix, and Corey Verving went about 10 feet, unfortunately, off the start and ended up having to tow it back to the pit lane and end the race from there. We're ready to interview your podium finishers, and we start with your Grand Prix winner. That's Hamilton Akabueze. And Hamilton, we didn't think we were going to be talking to you at least top step of the podium, but then issues for Hawken, not once but twice, puts you into the race lead. How'd you get it done? I mean, we saw you pull away right as you got that lead. Seemed like it was easy enough for you.
Yeah, I mean, I knew, like, a lot of people didn't show up, and so I thought it was just going to be me and Hawken, which it kind of was, but I couldn't even really keep up with Hawken. He made the right choice of starting on mediums. I didn't. And he betted on like an early race caution because I didn't expect the mediums to be that bad. They were just, after like 2-3 laps, they were the worst tire in the race. But I mean, I'll take the win. I deserved P2, but I got the win boxed with gift wrap with a bow on top. So yeah.
Of course, with your lead in the point standings by 12 points coming into this race, Hawken finishes in P6. This is a good amount of points for you. Coming up next, Road America. What are you going to do to extend that points lead for the rest of the season?
Well, I mean, it'll probably be the same story at Road America if it's all the same drivers, honestly. I think I have the pace to keep up somewhat with Hawken, but I'll probably just try and finish second to him. And I mean, who knows? Maybe something will happen and I'll have a shot at the win. I'll try and put some more laps in for sure for Road America. But yeah, more looking forward to like the Rectangle 500 for sure. That'll be fun.
And congratulations on your win tonight from Circuit de la Sarthe, and go get him at Road America and the rest of the season. Hopefully we're talking to you and get on the podium next week.
Thank you.
Great to hear from your race winner, Hamilton Akabueze. Second place went to Nicholas Pressy. Joey Atterbury is standing by with your second step of the podium.
Well, Nicholas, first of all, congratulations on the second place, but it didn't come easy. It seemed like Justin Melillo was starting to hunt you down at the end.
Yeah, the tires were going about 3 laps to go. The mediums really didn't last long at all. Once I said to myself, just do what you can to get the last 24, and after that, try and take it easy. But by that point, the tires were in really bad shape.
Well, did you learn anything from the two different tire compounds running it a little bit later in the race? And looking at Road America, can you maybe apply an alternate strategy there, or just stick with the hards during those whole fuel stint runs?
I still have PTSD from the end of the spa race. For now, I think my best approach is just to play it safe with the hards, unless something should come up which would prompt me to do otherwise.
Well, Nicholas, like I was saying, congratulations out there for that second place finish. You had a tremendous run today.
Thank you very much. Shame about Bryce, but hopefully we'll get it next time.
That was Nicholas Pressey coming home second today at Le Mans. Looks like we're going to bring in Justin Malillo, our third place finisher. Justin, talk to me about your whole race and maybe just a lap short at the end.
Yeah, Joey, it was really fun. Le Mans is one of my favorite tracks that I've come to appreciate over the last couple of years working with Traction.gg and being a part of the media for the 24 Hours of Le Mans virtual series. I said that backwards, but it doesn't matter anyway, right? Yeah, this is a really cool track, and I really have learned this facility over the last couple of years, and I was really looking forward to this race more than any other race on the schedule. I wish I could have put more practice time in, because I really do feel like I could have nailed it and been up there running with Hamilton and Brandon. But hey, P3 is not bad. I think if I had one more lap, I could have had P2. It was so close. I was watching the tire situation, right? Because we have to have that tire switch. And I started the race on mediums, knowing I wanted to make sure that at the end I had the best possible tire. And if there wasn't going to be enough fuel, I wanted to be able to make sure that I took the softs and ran, some really fast laps. I didn't want to be stuck on mediums having started on hards or something like that. And that's exactly what happened to Pressey, and exactly what I was watching happen. And I saw the time keep ticking down and ticking down and ticking down. And I caught 8 seconds to his back with 1 lap to go. And I thought I had a chance. And he pulled it together, and I got to give him a lot of props for that. But yeah, third place on a road course with the Mickey Mouse team. It's pretty good day. We'll take those points, considering the last time out of the road course we didn't get the points. And yeah.
Well, speaking of points and speaking of road courses, going to Road America next, I think it's a much more aggressive of a racetrack than here at Le Mans. How is your confidence now that you're standing on the podium? You got to have some momentum going into that place.
Yeah, it's a road course, and it's not, Circuit de la Sarthe. It's Road America is not a bad track by any means. I voted for it after Daytona was out, of course. But Road America is not bad. I've driven that a couple times in the Cup car, and it's just going to be about. And exactly what it was tonight. It was about how aggressive you can be into each corner without locking up and going too far over the limit. And I was starting to figure that out towards the end of it, and I felt tonight was like the most comfortable I've ever felt in any car at any road course in my life. So it was. I love this car. I love this Dallara IR1. And I love this series, FTF1, Modern Racing Prints. I wish I had my camera on, because I bought a Modern Racing Print calendar. That it's really cool what they got going on there. They got all the modern graphics on the top of it for the different races going on. Like The F1 Grand Prix is June 18th, and Le Mans, of course, this weekend. And there's IMSA 6 Hours of Glen on June 25th. And it's a really cool thing. I like getting calendars, and this was like a perfect opportunity for me. So definitely really cool. Love this series, love this car, and love you guys, by the way. You guys are great. And yeah, just happy to be sitting here talking to you guys with third place finish. I love that.
Oh, well, now I'm blushing over here. Justin, thank you very much for the compliments. And once again, congrats on your finish tonight.
Thank you so much.
Well, that was Justin Melillo, your third place finisher here at Le Mans.
And what a race it was in the 24 Tours de Mans. Wasn't 24 hours, and I think we're a little bit glad for that, but 24 laps completed around Circuit de la Sarthe. And if you like what you saw tonight, tomorrow night, doubleheader in the Bar Visuals FTF Cup Series and the Winstel Series right here on FTF.gg. And you can tune into both of those happening tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then, of course, the Course Summer Series by SimWrapMarket.com is back on Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. All these available right here on FTF.gg. But that'll do it for tonight's proceedings from the Forests of France. And for our producer, Zach Johnson, for my colleague in the booth, Joey Atterbury, my name is Joshua Lee. We thank you for tuning in to tonight's ModernRacingPrince.com FTF1 Series, the 6th round from iRacing's virtual Circuit de la Sarthe. Congratulations to Hamilton Akabueze, victorious in France. We'll see you in 1 week's time when we go racing from the hills of Elkhart Lake.